Audio's on, video's on. We need to change that camera. Which camera is it? Really not that one. There we go. Okay. There you go.
Squared away. Thank you, Madison. Did you, I haven't checked today, but did you see Emily's email? Like she's good for the 4th?
Yeah.
We're so good for that day?
I just didn't reply. I changed the name and everything too.
Mhm.
Are you good with her? Cause right now it says with Emily and Doug. You want me to take you off?
No, keep me on there. Yeah. Last time I did it with her, it seemed to go well. Yeah.
Thanks for getting that hot chocolate out of the.
Everything's bad.
Sure, I'll tell you what, she will get this excited about Legion to do my hot chocolate. I did my Legion.
That's accountability. That's a good friend.
There's nothing to looking out for you.
Yeah.
Hey, that's why they said Jesse wanted me to get an office on this side. I said, no. My accountability partner's across from me. And he helps me.
You know, he might say something on occasion that makes you feel uncomfortable and it's supposed to.
Oh, yeah. He sends me memes too. I sent one yesterday and only a couple people responded. You didn't like that one?
I had gone up, I was playing a 3-5-0 pickleball.
Oh, okay.
Pickleball match.
Well, I guess I am up and running here.
Who's wanting ransom trace in Georgetown?
Mr. McKenzie is.
Kenzie. Where's that at, McKenzie? Ransom trace.
Right there, place.
Oh, okay. Has that one been for sale before? Well, 6-7 years ago.
There's a bunch of ransom traces.
Yeah,
It's a cut through street, man.
yeah, it's popular, yeah.
Hopefully this is in the frame. Let me get signed in on all my stuff here. So I'm going to be working out of Flex primarily. And I'll be checking the PVA, but that's really the only 2 places I'll go. I hope. Maybe a little RPR.
You probably are with, he didn't have.
I see. Well, it's has it ever been listed? Okay, yeah, it'll come up on the MLS. I just use like RPR and Zillow to kind of check my work, see if my price range falls somewhere within theirs. But for the sake of the reporting, I do want to introduce myself. I'm Dustin Warren. I've been in the business for 8 years, and I will go through a real quick intro into value. Of course, we all know there's 3 types of value. You've got assessed value, appraisal value, and market value. Do we all know what the difference is in all 3? No? Take a crack, Tristan. I feel like you're gonna take pretty good. Yeah.
Assessed, appraised, and market.
Yep.
So the appraisal, I'm gonna guess is what the appraisal value comes in at.
Yep.
That's one person's opinion.
Yeah, that's based on appraiser's opinion. You've got assessed value, which is gonna be. There's gonna be some sort of basis for it. I don't know if it's gonna be like price per square foot or something. That'll be your assessed value, and then market value is that just what it's priced out, it's market.
Close. Spot
It's
on.
what the market's telling you.
So way I describe it, appraised value, well, that's what an appraiser's opinion of the value. Usually for the sake of getting a loan from the bank, right? Sometimes sellers get it for the sake of a sale, if they want to try to get an idea of what to expect when they sell, or like say there's an estate or a trust, somebody passes away. Usually they require one to determine the value, so they make sure they sell it at a reasonable price. Assessed value is what the local municipality wants to tax you on, right? That's the value that they determine so that they can get some of your money.
When they say property tax, like that's their assessed value.
That's the assessed value, yep.
Okay.
And then market value, well, that's what the market's willing to pay for a certain property. That is a price or value that a buyer is willing to pay and a seller is willing to sell for. So while those three are important, sometimes they come up when we meet with buyers and sellers. Sometimes when you're working with a buyer, they're on Zillow, they're looking at the property history for a specific property they're interested in, and then they see, you know, if it's never sold, well, Zillow is just taking public information, usually it's from the PVA, and listing it there. So if they see the assessed value that's, you know, 3 or 4 times less than what they're asking for, they're gonna think it's crazy overpriced. But we know that's not a true indication of market value. Because even if they had sold it before 4 or 5 years ago, well, we know in Lexington, that value is probably gonna be $200,000 more, depending on what they sold it for. Now, if it's a 200K house 4 years ago, it's probably at least 260 to 325 now, right? And a lot of buyers look at that and they're like, well, they only gave that for it 5 years ago or 20 years ago. Why should I pay 3 or 4 times that? Well, that's the market value, right? If you want to find a house, chances are in this market, you're gonna pay around about that price. Assess value, we check that market value. So why I point that out, I want to also demonstrate where that might be. So if this is the high and the low for property value, or for a specific property, usually your low is gonna be the market value, or the assessed value, I'm sorry. Assessed value is always usually the lowest, right?
The assessed is usually the lowest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some, I've met with sellers before in the past, and they're like, well, you know, my assessed value is, 250. You know, I'm like, okay, what's important about that? Well, I figured we could probably at least get that much. You're right. Now, if you could get a little bit more, would you want to? Absolutely, most people do. So then I explained why that's different than the appraised value and market value. Now, if we sell it to a buyer that has a loan, still got it appraised.
What's the average time like that, they do assessments again? Cause it's different or something, and if they go
It
by.
varies, it really depends, it's market related.
Yeah,
And it depends on the local government, right?
yeah,
Cause you go
but I
to
didn't
rural
know if
areas,
there's some kind of like,
period of time for the state as a whole, I don't think so. Cause you
Okay.
go to some of these more rural areas, especially eastern Kentucky, and they may have never reassessed value.
oh, I know, yeah.
You know, rather than up here, I think they've reassessed
Like
it
Lexington.
probably 3 or 4 times since I've had a license.
Good.
It feels like. Is that fair? I mean, y'all feel
That's
like
what
that?
I'm thinking, yeah.
And I think that has to do with market conditions up here. Because
Okay.
properties are selling and the appreciation year over year has been through the roof since 2017.
Yeah,
Deviating above the average 3%, right? Historically, it's 3%. Now, I don't know if that changes, that's changed throughout time, but 2017, when I got into business, I feel like it was around 5 to 7% year over year. 2018, it kind of stayed that trend. 2019, those rates started to adjust up. So that kind of started slowing things down. It's probably 4 to 5%. Then COVID hit and shot through the roof. Like 2020, I feel like it was 12 to 15% year over year appreciation. And that continued through 2021. Now we're back at a more healthy rate of probably 5 to 6. So what does that mean? People's homes are appreciating anywhere from 6 to 12% over the past 8 years.
Yeah.
So if somebody has, you know, been in their home for the past 20 years, and let's say their last assessment was in 2010, chances are their assessed value is 2 to 3 times less than what their neighbors are selling for. So that's when the government steps in and says, hey, we're collecting this much from your neighbor and from the majority of your neighbors at this
Yeah.
point. So we've got to reassess your value. That's how gentrification usually begins in those smaller neighborhoods, right? Those older neighborhoods downtown. Nonetheless, assessed value is usually your lowest amount. Now, your highest amount kind of switches between your appraised value and your market value, right? Sometimes the market value exceeds the appraised value. You ever seen that?
Right, yeah,
So when they talk about appraisal gaps.
Yep. Now,
And like
usually, go ahead.
and like, my mentor always says, a home's worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
That's right. That has the means to pay for it.
Yeah.
And sometimes.
Is that what they say?
What's that?
Yeah.
My name's one. I forgot the question. But sometimes those are interchangeable, but usually I would say 90% of the time your appraised value is just a hair above that market value, which is kind of funny too, right? Appraisers usually try to at least appraise that property for the price on the contract. Give or take 500 to $1,000. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and hop into the first CMA after I cover one more fundamental thing that I take for granted sometimes because I learned it early on. I need a paper towel.
There's a,
Yeah, I don't know if I trust this. Oh, it works fine.
yeah. And if it doesn't, just
Somebody got all the shingles off of it. It
Go
was
back.
hey.
It's brand new.
Oh, is it?
Should be also.
Looks a lot better than the last one. So 3 factors that influence price. Does anybody know what they are?
Location, condition,
ELC,
What'd you say, John?
ELC, price, location, and condition.
Okay.
I always skip P.
Right, because we're talking about price, but I like where John's head's at, and I'll comment on that in a minute.
The 3 things that, 3 factors that influence price,
Heather mentioned the most important one.
location, condition.
See, most
Demand.
important.
Supply and demand, fundamentally speaking, yeah. Let's keep this 1-on-1 today, Tristan.
Location, or that's as far as I got.
Yeah.
Oh, he's Googling it, no wonder.
No,
Somebody said, condition.
Of
Mhm.
course, yeah.
What do you mean?
That's gonna play
Condition of
into
the property.
my,
What's that mean exactly, though?
I mean, if it's in really great move-in condition, then it's gonna be higher. If it needs some work and lower. If it's a complete redo,
Repairs, updates, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because house could be fully updated, but may need some repairs, or house could be, perfectly fine, brand new mechanicals, but may need a lot of updates.
Yeah.
And then 3, I always say size of the house. That's gonna dictate the total price, right? More importantly, finished area. Compliant finished area, I should say.
yeah,
As well as above grade. And below grade, because we know usually above grade is more valuable than your below grade, right? Your basement square footage isn't gonna be as valuable as the square footage on a range.
bedrooms, bathrooms,
Same thing, yep.
as bathroom.
being said, is that gonna play into if they have like a bonus room? Is it the same as having a basement? Is that?
Well, if that bonus room is above grade, it's gonna be more valuable than if it were below grade.
Like above the garage or whatever, so it would be better to have it above the garage than a basement.
It depends.
Usually, yes.
I mean, I've seen some where you go in there and it's like this,
Yeah,
you know,
Yes.
and it's not quite as much usable space as, so Yeah.
And that's why I say compliant finished area, because a lot of times those finished attics or finished spaces above the garage.
Yeah.
You'll hear them called a boat room. Well, that's because you've got those angled ceilings and sometimes you can barely even stand up there. I think ANSI, the American.
Yes, I just took
What
that
is that?
class.
Did you, American National Standard Institute?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Just saying.
If it's below 5 foot, it's not
Not compliant.
compliant.
Okay.
So about my height.
Yeah, so if you can stand in the corner,
Mm-hmm.
it can be measured.
Yeah.
Then it has to be cut off. And what was interesting to me on that is with stairs, if it goes this way and then it has like a little landing and then goes this way. All that space in the
Landing.
in the stairwell cannot be
It's not included.
included in the measurement.
So. Let's say for instance,
It's down on itself.
this is that room upstairs. And let's just say about right here is 5 foot.
You do back out.
So do you include all this square foot?
Nope,
You would include from this,
right in the center. And interestingly enough,
It's just based on like all standards or
yes,
just like per
it's
entity?
standard.
And
So
Which
it's,
is-
American National
All-
Standard
Yeah,
Institute.
so we run CMA, this comes into account often. Or should.
It should. Only problem is when we run CMAs, we're not usually walking through each and every property, so we don't know if they're compliant or not.
right, and then the other thing that I found interesting is if you have a hill that's coming down to
Mhm.
the house. And it hits at a funny spot in the thing. Where that land hits on the base and on the base of the house.
Mhm.
That would dictate whether that house is considered above ground or below ground, so if it hits high on the house. All that space would be considered below grade,
Right. If it's above the first floor,
even if it's above the first.
Yeah.
On the first floor.
yeah. Now, still yet though, say at that corner of the house, front corner of the house, that's where that hill starts drooping down. And halfway through the middle of the side of the house. It's the entire house is above grade, that basement's still gonna be below grade though.
Right.
You can't, it wouldn't be
It's
like.
so
half of it.
weird the way they do it, and it's like. Oh. Yeah, she gave us some pictures and I was like, oh, this could be.
Now, I never try to play appraiser or ANSI person, engineer, I don't know what you call somebody for there, but. We just try to do our best with the information we have available, and at the end of the day, if you're unsure about the size of a house. Or let's say it's been listed multiple times on the MLS and the square foot varies each time. I would encourage you to get somebody in there to measure it. Now, there's some free apps now that is evolving. Cubic Casa is one of them. Not only will it give you a measurement, it will give you a floor plan sketch. You know, where each room's located.
How did they get that?
Well, you use that app and you walk through the
okay.
house. Kind of, video and everything. And
But
then,
Nancy, you measure outside.
yeah, appraisers usually take the measurement outside. I think sometimes they vary.
Chat. But. I'm very big.
I see. So now that we got the fundamentals out of the way, we'll jump into the first one, which is 233 Quill Run.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is I go to my MLS. I'm going to open up several tabs. First thing is address search. If you don't have that in your top ribbon, go to menu. Under the search, you'll see address. And in case you've never taken my class before, those stars on each item in that menu. If you start, it'll pin it to your top ribbon. What's that?
Start.
You just
Oh, okay.
hover over to the left of each item. So So if you find yourself using one of those features often and you want to save, a few milliseconds, go ahead and pin that up there. So address search. So here I'm gonna search the subject. I want to see if there's been any listings in the MLS for the property I'm trying to price out. 233. Now important when I'm doing this address search, I don't like to be too specific. I don't like to put in the full address. I don't even sometimes like to spell the first street name fully because we're all human, agents make errors. So when I do kind of like a partial search like this, it's going to pull all records related to that, partial address. Jesus, it's a big house, John.
Yes, it is.
Uh,
Biggest one in the hood.
yeah, I believe that. Right. All right. So
No, if I'm going to do this next time, because I. So then,
Send your mileage. I need kind of that action.
you have fun, yeah.
so the good news here,
It's a tough business.
all the specs align each time this property was listed dating back to 2016. Looks like it's 5 beds, 4.5 baths, and it is 5,771 square foot. Did it get built? No, 1989.
Oh, they've added on since then, that's why it's. They added on probably.
Oh yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I thought maybe they built that
Yeah.
big. Well,
Georgetown,
Where is it?
right here.
Georgetown.
That is the next step is to make sure you locate the property.
No, that's in town, that's just a couple of blocks from town.
This is gonna be super fun, ain't it, John?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Because it's not in a neighborhood.
right, there's about
That's
24
what
homes
he's
over there.
saying.
Now I know why you're here today. This is perfect. So first things first, and this is what I do at home when I'm doing CMAs, is I will make sure and notate the specs of that house because that ensures I get myself familiar with it and I don't, kind of skip steps and assume I know too much because we all look at too many numbers all day long. So make sure I've got the right specs. 5 beds. Four and a half bath.
It's got a pool, it's got a pool house, yes, it's
Settle down, John. Lord have
Yeah.
mercy.
it's got a pool house with a shower, it's kind of small.
5 bedroom, 4.5 bath. What was the square foot?
57, I can't remember the second.
Read that to me again, 5,000.
What's that?
I see it, 771.
Yeah.
How many stories?
7.
2 on a basement.
Yeah, 2 floors on the basement.
Alright. I'll notate that too.
I'm talking about buying it and renting it out to a sorority or company
There you go.
for the town college building.
Sort of a basement, year is 89. Why is that important? Well, when I do my search in a neighborhood or all of Georgetown for this instance, I want to make sure I get kind of properties that were built similar time frame, if possible. 1989, and where this one has a basement, I'm gonna list out below the square footage, how much is above grade, how much is below grade. Usually you can go to the detail of each listing, and if you've got a good agent, they will break that down. So above grade is 3,966.
Yeah, see, we're having a CMA class in here.
Right. 3,900 above, 1,800 below. That on mute. Spam. My favorite. So below that, I go ahead and follow my format, low, average, high. Also days on market. SP to LP, that is sold price to list price percentages. And closing costs. We'll get into all that in a moment, but from here, when I meet with that seller, I'm gonna give them a range, low to high. Usually when I walk in that house, if I'm unfamiliar with it, I start around the average, and based on what I see and what I hear, I'll either move, work up towards the high or down towards the low, depending on the condition, right? Days on market, that's gonna allow me to set expectations with that seller of how long they should expect before we get a contract. Of course, in the event we don't, depending upon market conditions, we'll need to make an adjustment, usually 5 to 10%. Why 5 to 10%? Well, we'll get into the stats part in a minute, but that's just what I've always heard, and believe it or not, you get into some of the searches. Flex added a new stat feature there, where it will give you a breakdown within that criteria you use in that search. It'll give you a breakdown of how many properties have sold, what that average or what that range from low, average, medium to high looks like from the specs, as well as the list price, the sold price, and the per square foot. Days on market, price changes and all that. But what I found was about any search you put in the MLS, 80% of the properties sell within 30 days. Pricing. And those that sell beyond that 30-day threshold usually sell 6 to 10% less than the original list price. Emphasis on original list price. Why? Well, that SP to LP is great to know, but that takes the sold price compared to the most recent list price. So that can be misleading. You want to see what that original list price is. Now that we're familiar with the property, I'm gonna pin that so I can go back. Well, we're not quite familiar yet. Let's look through the photos real quick. They almost got an acre there. Have you been in here recently, John? Anything changed? Looks like a super clean property. Nice updates, hardwood, got granite, double oven. Bless you.
Those.
Carpet. Yeah, this is sharp. Bathroom could use some updating, but that's if I'm reaching. That one could, is that new brass or old brass? That's old brass.
That's old brass, but
It looks like new brass. A little bit.
he was gonna update, do some updating.
It's clean brass nonetheless. Carpet in the basement. Full bath. Is this the main garage or like a mm-hmm.
That's a workshop, air conditioned heated workshop.
Sign me up. Just a few more houses to sell, right?
Yeah, this is cool. It's not gonna be very fun to price out, but sheesh. All right. When did they buy this?
Um, might-
They just bought it? Is this the house they just bought?
That's what I'm looking at. Evidently, he's listed with another agent, and that's the price where I was telling him he was at. Hmm. Yeah. 712.
Do you still want to run through it?
No, don't worry about it. Cause that's the price I was telling him. I told him around 825, I think is what I told him.
Well, you had it on the head.
Yeah.
Susan Wilburn, Century 21. I see he's expired a couple times.
Yeah, that's when we had it at that price.
Christine Casada.
Yeah. He tried to sell it himself for $1 million back, a while back.
That was 2 years ago. Eh?
Yeah,
He's been trying to sell this for a couple years now.
yeah. And he wasn't gonna update it. And I told him he needed to update it.
It looks empty. What did he do with it for those 2 years? Just sit on it?
Yeah,
That's
had
great.
a renter in there that tore some stuff up. Then
Well,
he had
sure.
another renter in there.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
moving right along.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for checking that.
No worries. We're gonna skip into ransom trays.
Yeah.
This is gonna be an easy one to knock out real quick, so.
There you go.
235 ransom trays. G-Town. Oops. Same thing here, address search. I'm just gonna go RANS. Okay, somebody put in the E at some point. They have not. So what I was saying earlier, as far as making sure those specs on the MLS history are uniform. As you can see here, they are not. They're pretty close. But there is one variation that's about 23 square foot less. Usually I check to see if there's a basement, if there's a variation. That one's small enough that I could go ahead and tell you there's not. There isn't. Chances are that either came from the PVA or that person's appraisal. I would be willing to bet the PVA has 1993 for the square foot or 33. No, 1993, I'm sorry. So that person that listed the smaller version most likely used their appraisal specs. Again, that varies. I've seen appraisers arrive at two different measurements before. So where this one isn't a significant difference, I would go with the more common thing, which is the 1,993 square feet. Or I'd go in there with a cubic casa. So that's a 3-bed, 2 full bath. $1,993 square foot. 1 story. I got a 2-car garage attached. It does. Built in 2006. Sometimes I highlight the neighborhood. This is Bradford Place. I do a lot of abbreviating, so if you have any questions over what AT&T means, it's attached. Anything else, just ask. Same format here, low to high, days on market, SP to LP, and closing costs. Closing costs, that's the likelihood somebody's gonna pay. Closing costs, why that's important, I met the sellers before, agreed to price, and then they say something like, well, I'm not paying closing costs. What's that mean? Because if they get the price that they're wanting, whether they pay those closing costs or not, doesn't really matter. So some people kind of misinterpret that. And as long as agents close their properties out accurately and, indicate whether or not the seller paid closing costs, we can kind of determine the likelihood that a seller will pay closing costs. Because usually you'll see if it's a theme or not, depending on the price point, depending on the neighborhood, depending on the market. So looking at this house, last sold or expired 2023. Don't know if a whole lot has changed. Looks like it's in decent condition, could use some updates. Where do those stairs go? Above the garage? Yep. Is that a window unit in the garage or what is that?
Looks like a board.
No. Got a picture of that inside?
I do not. I don't think. How do I get rid of this? There we go. Yeah, Barb could have took. We can all take better pictures, but these right here are hard to make out what's going on in this house. They're too close. Anyways, we are familiar with this house. Let's check it out on the PVA real quick. Make sure it's not sold since then. 2017, so it's same owner. PVA has it as that same square footage, which we confirmed. I'll go ahead and pin that over because we may need to revisit. Let's see where it's at.
You get the PVA.
What?
Sign that right there or something.
Yeah, two ways. You can just sign in straight to the Scott County PVA. From there, you can access your account and see all the different PVAs that you have access to, subscriptions to, or from the MLS, depending on the agent's input, there should be a link next to tax ID. And if you don't have this view, this is the Bluegrass Realtors detail report. I don't know where it's located at on some of those others, but tax ID, you click that. It's usually linked to the PVA record, as long as that agent's put it in there right. Now, I've seen certain counties vary, like Frankfurt, rarely does that link work. Madison County, it's hit or miss, 50-50. So now that we've got the subject, we've got ourselves quite acquainted with that. I'm going to do a quick search. Open that tab up. Hopefully you've been here before. From here, I'm going to locate the subject property first. Click the red thumbtack bottom right corner. Type in that address. So a little bit different from the search I did earlier. I did partial search when I was searching the address, right? Because I wanted to pull all the MLS records related to that address. Here, I'm gonna be thorough and complete, so I'm gonna type in that whole address, 235 Ransom Trace. That's Georgetown. 40475? No, that's Richmond.
Yeah. Oh,
Make sure you've got the right location. If it is, make sure you click that link, use this location. Otherwise, it will drag as you move. So we've pinned that down. Let's zoom out here. Two ways to approach this. Some people might type in the subdivision the house is located inside. That's fine. The only issue I have with that is that's dependent on that agent that's listed property in that neighborhood to put that same that same subdivision. Georgetown, you don't see it as much. Lexington, you definitely do. Those smaller pockets within New Circle. Some people will list a house, let's say, it's probably somewhere it's not in Lansdowne, but they'll throw it in Lansdowne. Or they'll try to piggyback off one of those more desirable neighborhoods. And instead of putting the right subdivision in there for their listing, they'll put the one they want to piggyback off of. And sometimes it's up in there, you don't know what subdivision it's in. So just be cognizant of that. I don't like that approach. What I do is I draw a boundary around that neighborhood or what I think to be the neighborhood. You can toggle between the map or the satellite view in case it's hard to tell. Satellite sometimes make it easier, sometimes make it harder. In this instance, I think it's a little bit easier. I'm a little more familiar with this pocket. So I know where some of those hard breaks are. It's going to go along Ransom Trace up to, I think, Showalter. Because if you cross over Showalter into, the native names there, Choctaw, Yuma, Apache, Inca, those are older homes, right? The late 80s, early 90s. There you go. So Bradford Place, those are all early 2000s. And I can't remember what Emerson Trail is, but I'll probably pull that in here too. So right above that red thumbtack, you see a polygon, click that, and that's what allows you to draw what you see on the screen. I'll go up to Showalter here. I think it's Showalter, right?
yeah.
No, it's Pocahontas.
Oh,
Showalter's down there. I had those mixed up. So I'm going to go up to Pocahontas and take that over to Main Street. Double click when you're done drawing that. What did that? So I've got my polygon there. Next thing I'm going to do, this is a single family residence. It's not a condo. It's not a townhouse. If you're unsure, check those previous MLS records. Usually it's abbreviated here, property subtype SF. If there's some discrepancies there, check the PVA, see what its zoning class is. Sometimes it's indicated there or in the building information. I don't see it anywhere. That's okay. Every PVA varies. Fayette County's is pretty good in telling you if it's townhome or condo. Specific example, Lake Tower condos or townhomes. If you did a Lake Tower address search for Lexington, it's going to pull all those condos in or townhomes. Sheesh. What you'll see there, though, is the majority of those are townhomes. Occasionally, an agent will list it as a condo. Why is that important?
they're different.
They're different. Also, they can be different in terms of getting a loan to purchase that.
Oh, yeah. Insurance counts different also.
Yeah. And if somebody is considering townhomes, but they don't want to do the condo lot, well, if you list something incorrectly as a condo, that buyer's not even going to see it in your search, are they? Does everybody know the main difference between a condo and a townhome?
It shares the wall.
Townhomes share walls. Usually you got, two neighbors, up to two neighbors, or, well, you've got people behind you too. So it could be up to three neighbors. Condos, you share walls and sometimes floors and ceilings. Right?
Yeah.
Because you can have somebody above you, below you, and beside you, behind you. Got it?
Yeah. It was all,
When I think of a condo, I think more of like an apartment.
Like an apartment. That's right.
So is a townhome different than a duplex?
Yes.
See, and what makes the difference in the, is it just because a duplex is just two and a townhome be?
A duplex can consist of two townhomes. Because duplexes are usually how many units? Two, those, right? Townhomes is referring to the
Like a
single
row
unit.
house.
Yeah, or yeah, if you bought a multi-unit property that had, several townhomes within it, then, you're buying multi-family. There's some 40511, there would be something like that, I can't remember what that road is. But I think there's like eight units, so added the status, active, coming soon, pending, contingent, closed. If you don't know how to select those all together, because if you notice, if you click those one by one, it will deselect the previous. You can click and drag, or you can click, hold Control Shift and go to the bottom and click. So I've got 26 results. So this house, again, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,900 square foot, 1-story. This is where I try to establish some parameters for this search to weed out some non-comparables. Usually 3-bed, 2-bath, 1-story home, you're gonna see anywhere from 1,000 square foot to, maybe 15 square foot. Especially considering the year it was built, where this one's a little bit bigger. We may have trouble finding comparable sales. So I'm gonna leave it at the 26 now, going 6 months back for the sold date, just to see, number one, if I'm in the right area, number two, where I might need to set that criteria in my search to make this easier. So if I start with the size of the home first, biggest to smallest, goes from 36 to 26, and then gradually down. So from here, I'm going to find that hard break. These probably have basements or are 2 stories. They are. So what I'm going to do instead, since it's a big house, there are some bigger houses here that are 1 story. Now that I know the makeup of this pocket, I'm going to go back to edit search. I'm going to add a filter in here for stories. I'm going to go 1, 1.5. And then I'm going to go square foot, at least 1,400 and no more than 2,400. So as you can see, that 26, the 26 results that I had previously narrowed way down to 5. Makes my job a lot easier. Now, appraisers are allowed to go back a full 12 months if they can't find enough comps within the 6-month period. So I'm going to go to my sold date, change that to 366 just because that went from 5 to 12. Let's check those out. Usually the first thing at this point, I go to sold price per square foot. I'm going to sort that from lowest to highest, because that's gonna allow me to go to the bottom price per square foot and to the top end. See where the big jumps are, because that usually indicates, condition. And see what I might be able to throw out because it's an outlier. So as you can see here at the bottom, 146 a square foot, big jump to 173. And then it's gradual from there, right?
Yeah.
Until you get to the top end. It goes 195 to 213, 213 to 224. So chances are those are either in top condition or they're the smallest properties in this list. Because usually your smaller properties sell at a higher rate per square foot, as long as we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
Now, if it's 2-story or it's got a basement in there, that changes things. But if we're talking just 1-story above grade homes, smaller homes are gonna sell at a higher rate per square foot. Not a higher price, but a higher rate per square foot. So we don't have a whole lot in here that is as big as a subject property. Can anyone look at the screen right now and just from this alone determine why this is so low? Okay, okay. So what can we infer from that? Older home. What else? It's the only one that's built that year, or built or varies that much in your build. Probably in another neighborhood. So if you look at subdivision, right? So you may not have this same view as I do. I've molded this over the years. I did a lot of comparables really quick, early on. So not being familiar with the area, not being from the area, I wanted to be able to kind of find the best comps as quick as possible and determine the value. So I set these columns up to allow me to be able to do that. And you just experience how I go about that, right? Other things that add value or might, make one property sell at a higher rate than another. Primary on the first floor. This is the one that drives me nuts. If it's a 1-bedroom home, where would that primary be?
Well, the sad part is, does it take that information when we put it in the MLS?
Yeah, if you put it in MLS.
So you don't have to put those rooms, what floor they're on?
You don't have to, no.
Okay.
It's advantageous to.
It is if it's more than one floor, but if it's a ranch, then there's no sense, so you don't have to.
That's
Right? Okay, all right.
Yep.
I didn't realize that. I just thought we had to, so I'm putting them in there and the whole time like, first floor, what else? First floor, so, okay.
As you should, because, certain agents will set their buyer search up to catch some of those things. They may be looking for a 1-story home
Yeah, or primary on the first level.
or a bedroom on the first level. So
Yeah.
they may be open to doing 2 stories or a story and a half, as long as they have a bedroom on that first floor.
Gotcha.
So from here, I will skim these from the top. Why? Well, this one right here is in Hambrick, wherever the heck that is.
In what?
Hambrick. See, this is what I'm talking about. I think that's mislabeled.
Now, how did you get that area again? I'm sorry.
This boundary
Yeah,
right here.
okay, and why did you go, since there's so many houses there, why did you go so far out?
When you say so far out, what do you mean?
Like. That's a big area.
Mm-hmm.
So do you go like? What if it's one of those places where and that could be one of the things, cause you got one little neighborhood. And then the next one goes right into it,
Mm-hmm.
and the only thing separating it is the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes it'll catch that. Now,
Which
I'd like
I
to
guess you would
start.
catch that when you did your square footage, but square footage, you know, it's different in different areas.
Yeah, I like to start big, and then if I need to hone it in and make it smaller, I can.
Yeah.
So like we just did with the one that was at the lower end price per square foot.
Yeah,
This one.
yeah,
So it's in a different neighborhood,
yeah,
right? And I can check that when I go to my map. So it looks like it pulled a house on Pocahontas because that backs up to that street where I drew that line, right?
yeah,
I should have put that line in their backyard. But for the sake of time, I didn't. However, I didn't go enough into this neighborhood to say, oh, I need to dial that back some and adjust my polygon.
which I guess, like you said, you go bigger, but then when you put some of the criteria in there, or you check it, you'll
Mhm.
notice, okay, that
Yeah.
was built in 1980. These
Yeah.
were built in 2000.
And sometimes up here in Lexington, like a lot of those neighborhoods within the circle, they're all built around the same time.
Yeah,
So depending on the house that I'm trying to determine pricing for, if I start small and, let's say there's 20 results, and then I put this, those parameters in for my house, say it's a big house, it's unique, it's not like in that smaller pocket, those 20 results might go down to 1 or 0. So if I start bigger, well, I can, number one, kind of check to make sure those neighborhoods that border the subject
yeah,
are bringing around or bearing the same rate around about per square foot. And if that's the case, then once I put in those parameters, it's okay if there's no comparable in that specific neighborhood, as long as I've got something in those border neighborhoods. So now that I've done that, I'm going to start trimming this list. So I'm going to select all 12. I'm going to eliminate the one from the bottom because we know that's not comparable. It's a different neighborhood, different aged home. And then I'm going to go to the top since those appear to be outliers, because I don't like to trim from, the bottom and not trim from the top, or I don't like to trim from the top and not try and look to trim from the bottom, because that can skew your data. So
Why,
what do you mean?
why?
Well, let's say, for instance, I'll show you real quick. So if I just do a quick stat CMA using these. So this is the first one. This is all 12, right? So we've got 9 closed, ranging from 240,000 for sold price up to 339, with an average 296 to 305 for the median. More importantly, the sold price per square foot ranges from 146 up to 224.
yeah, it's a big difference.
It's a big jump, right?
Yeah.
With an average of 189 and a median of 191 a square foot. Now, this next one I trimmed from the bottom only. I want you to pay attention to the average and the median. Average median jump. Anywhere from what, $2 to $4 a square foot. And as you can see, the close price, the low jump 35,000. Now, if I go to the one that I trimmed from the top and not the bottom, it pulls the average way down. Right?
Yep.
And the median. Same thing for the price, maybe. Nope. So my range is still good for the most part, but it skews the average and the median. So for the sake of precision, if I trim from the bottom, I like to look to trim from the top. Doesn't mean I have to. It's just if there's some outliers or, yeah. Now, reason I would trim these two, number one, they are much smaller than the subject, 500 square foot. And we know smaller homes tend to sell at a higher rate per square foot. How do we check that? Well, 195 was the high before it jumped. How much? What is that? 20, no wait, $18 a square foot. And then it jumps another $11 a square foot. Rather than right here, 195, 195, 191, that's $4 jump. Another $4 jump. Right there is an $11 jump, $3 jump, big jump right there. You see what I'm looking at? So price per square foot. So that will usually tell you a story. Not always. It's not always. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
But chances are this big jump was due to the age of the house and it being in a different neighborhood. These jumps right here, $11, chances are it could be condition related. And then as we could tell here, these are not only smaller homes, but probably top-notch condition. Let's see. I sold this house. Looks like they added some yeah, backsplash and painted the cabinets. New fridge, new cabinets there. Those weren't there.
Yeah, there's so many, I mean, there's a handful of factors that go into this stuff. It's. Got your core factors.
They didn't touch that. That's new. So let me rephrase what I said earlier. I sold this previously. This is a buddy of mine's house.
Dustin, I'm gonna take this 2 or 3 more times.
Yeah,
I gotta go then.
do your thing, Bentley. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you, man. Always appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And then you got 148 Hawthorne. Again, it's been updated, usually most likely going to be top condition for the neighborhood. Right?
Yeah.
And they're smaller. So if I go to the one that's kind of before that big jump, 195 a square foot, it's probably going to be moderate condition. Not top notch for the neighborhood, but still clean. And that's exactly this one. Yeah, that's a good floor plan. I like the vaulted ceiling. So yeah, so I will trim those from the top and from the bottom. Now this one right here, I noticed probably the same, similar floor plan, same square foot, exactly. Right? Let's see what the list price per square foot on it was. $199 and it sold within 10 days.
I think the highest one is 70. And the less
70.
days.
Oh yeah, for time. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine too long. For the price point, style home, and the neighborhood or the area. Cause these are, you know, what a lot of people would call, you know, first time home buyers. Or first time homes. Starter homes, that's it. Jeez. All right. I'll leave that one on there because it's pending, just to have some other statuses. So from there, go to selected. Allows me to get rid of the ones that I've already eliminated from what I'm gonna use. I'm gonna resort these to make sure I've got a good data set. Sold price.
One side of the,
What's that?
there's something that looks like that on one and then.
Yeah, let's see where that one's at. Right there. Let's see if it truly is in hand brick. Hand brick place. Yeah, I was trying to see if there was a overlay for the neighborhood, but there's not. So it's a good point. That house is in another neighborhood. I'll consider leaving it since it's in line with the neighborhood in terms of, now, if that was one that was on the upper end, absolutely. I think there was one on the upper end that was in Hambrick. But
I also noticed that it's like.
yeah, yeah, I know. And so if the year was like in the 90s or, you know, even the 80s, yeah, I'd probably go ahead and eliminate that. But where that is the newest house and our subject is 2006, I'm going to leave it. And from here, I'm going to see what the rhyme or reason is for these at the top, which we already did. Good condition, could use some updates here and there. Let's check Barrett. Looks like a clean home. Could use some updates.
No kidding. I feel like I rock. No joke.
What's that?
I'm not joking. That looks like one of the houses that my husband and I bought.
They all start to look the same.
They do, but like the backyard is, I kind of more what I'm
I see.
looking. Just like.
Jesse, shh.
Yeah, conditions starting to get rougher, right? As I move down that list. Yeah. See, this one looks like it shouldn't really belong at the bottom of that list other than that green paint. Two different colors, two different tints of green. You got carpet. But also, whoa, look like a lonely toilet there. At that bonus room. Chances are it could have needed some work. Is that a window missing? Yeah, so condition, while it didn't look like it was totally outdated compared to the others, it could use some updates and looks like it needs some work. And it's a one-car garage. So that's why it's at the bottom of the list. So I'm going to use selected. I feel good about all those. First things first, I do a stat CMA. Individual listing information, that's important because that will give you a list of each property below the summary at the top. And I kind of use that as my cheat sheet. So median calculation too, because I want to see if there's a significant difference between that average and the median. And then from here, I'm going to figure out what would be the likely price of the subject property on Rents and Trace. So I pull out my calculator using the sold price per square foot because that's where I put the most emphasis because those are facts that we know.
Right.
For the properties that have hit the market over the past 12 months, we know what they were asking. We know their specs. We know how long it took them to get a contract, and we know what they closed that contract at. Pending, it's nice to look at. Ideally, would like to have 5 of each status, 5 closed, 5 pending, 5 active. Depending on the market, not gonna have that luxury, but you look at those pendings. Primarily the price per square foot, compare that against the close, as well as the days on market to see if there's any kind of trend there that the market's moving in. Are things selling for more in less time than what they have previously? Or are they selling for about the same or maybe even less or taking longer to sell? So $173 a square foot times the subject at 1933 or 1993 is this is gonna be off. So the first number, this is why I like going about it this way. Because if you make a mistake, you're gonna find out pretty quick. So the low is 350K, average. Average appears to be about 370. And the high puts you right at 390. Days on market. Average of 22 days, so right around 3 weeks. But we know they are selling as little as 0 days on and as long as 70 days, so a little over 2 months. Sell price to list price within those time frames. On average, properties or sellers are getting 98% of what they're asking with a range of 95 to 102. Then the closing cost will come in here. So it looks like one seller paid $1,000 towards buyer closing cost prepaids. And that is it. So 1 out of 6 isn't really sufficient. It's like 17%. And what I do there is I usually put, say, 17% chance seller pays up to whatever the average is for those closed. Now in this instance, it's 1,000. towards buyer closing costs. Prepays, whatever. However, that's not significant enough that I would typically note that. Meaning 17% chance they pay up to 1,000. That's on the lower end of the spectrum. Usually I might see 2 or 3 of these paying closing costs, and those could range anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000. And then I take an average of those. Now backing up to the error, potential error. So we've got a range for the subject property. Low 350, average of 370, and a high 390. Why is that alarming? Well, if I look at the comparable sales that I've used to determine that pricing, what do we see here? The sold 275 up to 340 with an average right around 300. Well, our low is higher than this high.
Yeah. True.
And that's because of the size of this house. So you can only imagine if I use the ones on the upper end, price per square foot that I eliminated, what that would,
Put it way out.
it would have put way up there. Yep. Not only would my low be higher than the high, but the high would probably be twice as much, be in the fours. So I need to go back to my search and figure out how to navigate this. Because the next biggest house is this one right here. That is pending.
And our subject health is how many square?
1,993.
So those are all smaller,
Yep,
like quite a bit.
quite a bit.
That's.
Yep. So we see 217 Atwood. They went to the market asking 344.9. It's 3-bed, 2-bath. 1,838 square foot, which is slightly smaller than the subject. It sold at, or they were asking 187 a square foot, which seems to be right there in line with probably the average. It is a 1-story house, no basement. Added maybe a sunroom on. Now, the good news is they got a contract within 2 days, which tells me it most likely is worth at least, what was that, 187 a square foot? Right?
Think so.
And our average was 186, 189. So if we apply that to ours, that would put us around 370. I feel like that would be more like the high. So in this instance, where this subject is so much bigger and it's 1 story, I would probably trim these 2 from the top as well because they're smaller. And then that's the next kind of like break, I guess.
Just that my. No. Wouldn't you wanna take the one that's 1428 off, it was built in 96? Cause it's smaller square foot.
I would. I just left that on there for pending, but no, you're right. I totally would. Because I wouldn't want that in the mix too.
That's, see, I would look at more square footage.
Yeah. So if I were to take those 2 off, because they are smaller, and then your next bigger
Uh,
right here. So if I do that real quick, I know.
Wow, that did change the pricing a lot, though.
Yeah, the
That kind of balanced it out a little bit. It's still over,
yeah,
but not as much.
not as bad. So that takes the average. There you go. I'll leave those numbers on. So the low is still gonna be 350, right? Yeah. Well, actually, we'll adjust it down to 345. So I rounded up right there. And then your average adjust down 10K, 360. And your high adjust down 10K as well for 380. I might go ahead and round down, but so that is what I feel comfortable going in there, meeting with the seller. Range of 340 to 380 with emphasis on the risk 380 poses because of the size of this house. I would lean towards the 360. Just to see, you know, how the market responds. However, I'd highlight what we just went through, some of the things that, you know, were red flags that, you know, felt alarming. Because we're pricing your home based on, you know, similar sales in the area, however, you've got the biggest range. What appears to be the biggest range in the neighborhood.
Which I think would, I guess, my opinion, if I were pricing it would allow them to price it a little bit higher than anybody else.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, it's justified, especially if it's in top-notch condition. Now, if it's not been updated since it was built and it, you know,
There's holes in the wall.
has holes in the wall, or even just think, you know, a house that was built in 2006, how long ago was that? 19 years? What if the HVAC is original? What if the roof is original? Those are all things that would be, that would need to be considered in the pricing. Yeah, so I wouldn't go to 380 if it needed all those things on top of updates. I would probably even steer clear of the average. I might go closer to 350. But 360 still wouldn't be bad as long as, let's say, it's a clean property, doesn't need any immediate repairs. However, you've got those looming items that are at the end of their lifespan. So 360, 350, as long as it's clean. And I think that's, you know, while it's not within the range of these comps, it's close enough to that high that if the market doesn't respond appropriately to that price within 3 weeks, then we'll need to make an adjustment, 5% to 360. What is that? Well, 10%'s 36 grand. So half of that'd be 18. So you would adjust that to, might as well call it 20 down to 340. But we'll know within 3 weeks' time because we'll either have a whole bunch of traffic in and their feedback will give us some insight of what the property needs. And then from there, we can say, well, those things are gonna cost this much. And
Do we wanna just fix it?
the luxury is you have the option to either address those items or adjust the price in lieu of those items. So we'll know that rule of thumb, we should have an offer within 3 weeks or within our 10 shot. If we don't, or we get offers that are lower than what you're wanting to take and they keep coming in around the same price, chances are that's the market telling us what your home's worth. You as a seller, again, have the option, you want to sell it now or wait to another time to get that price because might be at that price point 12 months from now, 24 months from now. Really depends on what you want to accomplish. But keep in mind, you're gonna be paying that mortgage for that period of time. So it's gonna come out in the wash. Now if we had more time, I'd go back through. I try to find some better comparables if they exist, but based on the size of that house and it being 1 story, I'm not confident there's a whole lot of houses out there that are 1 story. 1900 square foot. Now, let's see though, just for shiz and gigs, go to edit search. I'm gonna take off the polygon. I'm gonna go 1800 as my minimum square footage up to 2400. 1 story only. We'll go 1.5. And then Georgetown. 138 homes now. If I go to lot size, 1 acre or less, 138 down to 128. And let's say I want apples to apples, or close enough, 3 to 4, at least 2 full bath. And then if I go to year built, let's say 1990 up to
2006.
2016, we'll say 35. And those are rather scattered. So I wouldn't want to go up there in Mallard Point and all that stuff. I would go right here. I take Pleasant Valley into consideration too, because those are built around the same time frame or similar time frame, maybe a little bit newer. And let's see what those sell for range wise, price per square foot. Other thing I would do is put no basement. $23. And that's past 12 months.
What kind of name on my school? Is there only one active? 2 active.
2 active. So we see as low as 124 a square foot up to 221. Richfield, it's not too far away. That one's probably got a lot of square foot on the top. Get rid of those that I've selected. Let's just do a speed round real quick. Well, that's not working. It's not selecting all of them. Whitman, I can already tell there's a lot of square footage up there. That looks like a different house altogether. Feel good enough about that, I think. I go to the 20 I've selected. Flex is being difficult right now. All right. So I've trimmed from the bottom. Let's see if we can trim from the top. Holy smokes, that's cherry blossom. 2016, that seems to be the newest, one of the newer ones in my list. Yeah, I'm gonna eliminate that because 495 is quite the outlier. Everything else is kind of gradual there. Cherry Blossom Estates. I know that's a premier neighborhood, so is that one worth eliminating? A bit of a quirky layout. It's all right. But they've got a clubhouse and all that stuff, and Bradford Place does not. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. Huh. I thought I might have knew those people. I don't not. Thank God. So CMA, you selected. This is just a speed round, everybody, to check some of those things that were alarming to us when we calculated the pricing. Previously using those comparables that were quite smaller. These are a little more in line. As you can see, the finished area ranges from 1,800 up to 2,400 square feet. When as before, it ranged from 1,500 to 1,700. So below the subject. So based on these right here, now what we could find out is it's just going to justify the pricing we arrived at. And that's fine too. So 330 is my new low. 186, 1993. Average is still about the same. And my high would be 415.
415?
Mm-hmm. And that is based on, now if that seems alarming, and it does it on occasion, so I go back and look at my comps, kind of follow the same process we have been, kind of just looking for big jumps. And while there may not be big jumps, there may be other things that determine why those are selling at that price per square foot and the subject may not. So 3 beds, 2 baths, 1,800, nothing special there. Lot size, can't tell how big it is. This one built in 2016, same specs, beds, baths, etc. So what I would do is I would probably use a combination of these and the ones we used previously. The ones previously, I would look for the bigger ones to use only. And I would use a combination of those with these for the CMA report. I probably leave my high at 380, or I might be willing to go up to 390, 400. I don't feel the greatest about the 415 because I don't know if anything is sold in Bradford Place for 415 unless it's 2-story, and that may give us some additional insight too. So if I went back to my search, I just did Bradford Place. Probably better if I just did a quick search, a fresh one, to see what the highest price point is in Bradford Place.
Figure it out?
Yeah, I'd stay away from 400.
Huh?
Yeah, I'd stay away from 400 in that neighborhood. Cause I just did a clean search, all active pending closed past 12 months in Bradford Place. There's only two that sold above 400.
So like 390.
Yeah.
Is high, you know?
I mean, if the seller was super adamant and willing to be wrong, as long as he's willing to make an adjustment in 3 weeks. The most I absolutely list this property for would be 400. And that's if it was a home run. You know, like all the bells and whistles, all the big ticket items updated.
Granted it.
Mhm. Hey, I'm willing to mind taking care of this place. You've updated it real nice. As long as you're willing to make an adjustment in 3 weeks, if we don't have what we're after. But as you can see, Mr. Seller, past 12 months, Radford Place has only bared above 400,000 twice. And those houses, one was 2,600 square foot, so about 700 square feet bigger than the subject. And the other was what, 3,600. So bear that in mind. Now, granted, what were they trying to sell for previously? 340, 2 years ago. I would say they could get, as long as nothing has changed, just bearing in mind the time and appreciation over that time. Well, if they didn't get 340 then, and it's the same house, so the age of items have gotten 2 years older, I would say 350, 360 tops. Now, if they've done some things since then, that'll need to be considered and just.
Pulled it off the market, fixed it up.
Mhm, yeah.
Okay.
But if they didn't get 340 then, chances are 2 years passes, they could probably get, 340 to 360 now. Now, did they get 340 when they were on the market previously and maybe some things came up during inspections? How can we check that? If we go to detail, we go to history, you can see a breakdown of that. Initially hit the market at 349, July. Middle of July, got a little bit of a late start. Reduced it 2.6%. Then we had a status change. September 18th, that was withdrawn, and then now that was in 2017.
It always blows my mind, Steve, what house was sold for a while back. And you're like, wow, why would anybody rent?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if this house was built in the 60s, I mean, heck, you could look back and see what someone in the 70s or 80s gave for it. It'd be like 40 or 50K.
When we tried and I bought our house, it was like 65. I thought my dad was gonna hit the ceiling. I was like, okay. Let's see. You bought your first house in 1973. How much did you pay for it? It's like 65. I was like, just 65,000, and he goes, yeah. I was like, see, that's why you hit the ceiling.
Yeah. That's such a common theme. And it's like, well, they're not the ones buying the house. And two, they have been around. And while it may not be their fault, but you can play that fun back with them. What have you guys been doing to keep these costs low? Now we're having to pay 3 or 4 times.
Well, like we had that conversation today. He's the one that bought the house, stayed there until we got transferred. And now the house that he's living in now, because we moved from California and sold that house, he paid off the loan had cash enough to buy the property and add on to it. So he has never had,
A more,
mortgage.
yeah, right. Insane.
so, yeah, so he paid when you went to South Carolina, paid. It was a house plus 5 acres. And he paid like 160
Wow.
for it. And now I did a CMA just for kicks the other day on it, and it's like over 8,000.
Easily, yeah. When did you say you bought it?
Hmm.
When did you say you bought it?
We bought it in 95,
I see.
right, we bought it in 95.
Well, that concludes the main portion of today's class, so I'm gonna turn everything
Yeah.
off, and then I'll take a look at,
My fun,
yeah,
it's about,
yeah.
have fun, with that. I have to run the market on it.
Well, I think,
It's kind of an outlier.
oh yeah, because it doesn't have any finished area.
Oh, well, no, not just that. So.
Oh dear.
2022. 260, you'll see it in CMA, but, it is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, farmhouse, on 5 acres with a barn. And a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, which he
Oh my
ended up living. And he had rented out to some college students.
Oh dear.
Here we go. I think the first one, the 200 one, will have more pictures. Yeah. But that he flipped. That upstairs area. And the paddocks are all gone. And the pool he filled in. He just pushed dirt into it. And he has it listed for 469. But the house is completely unlivable. He ripped everything out.
He's crazy. For 469. Like finish, maybe. You could get that. I would say the better angle with him, it's not so much the price. I mean, price is important, but at the end of the day, does he realize like the audience of buyers that can currently purchase a home? It's really just investors. Because not only do you have to have the money to buy the property outright, you got to have the money after the fact.
Well, and his thing is, oh, they can come in and buy it and then bulldoze it. I'm like,
So you're selling 5 acres for 460?
yeah, that's essentially what I was like, well. Then let's change the pricing, let's sell it as if we're just selling that apartment, that 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. Over the 2-car garage and 5 acres. Because that would put you in a much better sales thing, but I went and I tried to convert him. And he essentially told me he didn't want to list it with me because he didn't want to hurt any of his friends' feelings. Because he had a lot of friends in Nicholasville that are agents.
I see.
We'll have anyone come out and look at it.
Right. Yeah, at the end of the day, the best way to, make sure your friends don't get mad at you is use somebody that you don't know. Because if you know multiple agents that are your friends, then you can't pick between those. What's that?
His name's Larry Lewis.
Should. Yeah, Larry might be a little unrealistic.
All guys. Thank you guys.
We'll auction it for him, but shoot, he ain't gonna like the low end that we can guarantee him.
He's very nice. First, his person didn't scream at me, but I tried it at a different angle. I just called him and I was like, hey, I live literally down the street from you. Tell me about the property.
Yeah, this is,
He's right there, you can see it's cool too, it's in a great area. To have 5 acres and be able to have animals.
oh, I didn't stop my.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions for me?